not at any point is one of them thinking, I need to create space for somebody else. He needs to build on that in an attacking sense, and then maybe, just maybe, he might cling on to his job.
Manchester United may have bored the pants off the entire nation with their 0-0 draw at Villa Park on Sunday, but here at Tactics Exposed, we noticed a few promising signs, although they may not be enough for Erik Ten Hag to keep his job. And then later in the day, Tottenham did their level best to keep the Spursy tag alive by throwing away a 2-goal lead at Brighton to lose 3-2. But one thing is for sure, at the Amex, both teams certainly showed Manchester United and Erik Ten Hag how to attack. And we are back at Tactics Exposed with Sun Sports tactical guru Dean Scoggins. Dino, as always, you have got 5 tactical titillators that you noticed from the weekend.
Absolutely. And we start at Villa Park, and it was Rasmus Hojlund who's solved just about Erik Ten Hag's pressing issue. And there was also some discipline from 2 red cards, Bruno, but discipline this week from him. There was an improvement, a little improvement from United in playing out from the back, but they were clueless going forward, and that's all because of selfish runners. OK, we'll come back to that. There was also the set-piece hokey cokey that some of the fans might have noticed. Hurzeler, the young Brighton boss, has out-Anged Ange. And then, yes, how it's done at the Amex, where you got Brennan Johnson 6 in 6, showing the angles of run, and then Brighton obviously took over and did the same in the second half. And also, Will, we've got a secret number 6 for you here, where, thanks for the comments again out there, where it's been commented on that Tottenham's Mikey Moore is all of a sudden working for Sun Sport and Tactics Exposed, where we can see the likeness between Will Pugh here and Tottenham's up-and-coming winger Mikey Moore. I'm not sure what you think about that, Will.
Well, I wasn't having it at first when you first said it, but upon closer look and with the screen that size, there is a little bit of a likeness. I'll be honest, I don't think Mikey will be too pleased, and I would say that his potential on a football pitch is probably somewhat greater than mine.
Oh, let's hope he turns into the specimen that you are as he gets a bit older.
Yeah, for Tottenham fans' sake, I really hope he doesn't. Right, Dino, last week we ripped Manchester United to shreds. Bruno Fernandes...
Tottenham did as well.
Well, Tottenham did as well, yeah. Bruno Fernandes in particular for a lack of discipline, but a bit more of a gritty performance this week, and there were signs of improvement.
Yeah, and there had to be. There had to be signs of improvement, and for Ten Hag's job, but also to give some Man United fans something to cling on to. They had a good performance against Porto in the week. Well, good result in the week, but defensively they weren't very good again. But here at Villa Park, they worked it out with the press. So what happened and what went wrong last week at Old Trafford is that they pressed 2v2 up top. Bruno went all over the place. Spurs played it in behind. Bentancur had the freedom of Old Trafford, OK? What they did much better here, now Hojlund replaced Xerxes for a start. I could talk all day about how bad Xerxes is, both with the ball and without the ball, OK? but we won't. Hojlund was very good. And what he was good at was understanding when to press and when to chase the ball. But a lot of the time, Man United just dropped back in. And instead of Bruno playing alongside the striker, he actually dropped in behind the striker. So they had a one-man leading the press, and that meant they had 3 midfield players behind. And that meant Bruno was much more disciplined.
So that's an improvement. Last week you were talking about how United were playing almost in a 1995X 4-4-2, but it was flat, which
Absolutely,
was causing problems. So
and then when those 2 players are out of the game, where Spurs just played around it last week, then they're toast, they're done. They can't get back involved. It's really hard work. Teams are turning them round. But in this instance, they've only got 1 player out of the game. And that's fine if Villa have then got 2 defenders back. And then Bruno does a decent job of getting around the ball player in Villa's midfield, which was Tielemans in this instance. And Bruno, look, he's had a bad week all in all, but he actually had a very disciplined performance on where he should run. And I've also got to praise the positional sense of Kobbie Mainoo and Eriksen as well. Few eyebrows raised when Eriksen started, but that was because just organisation. But also, it came from the back and Maguire as well.
It's fair to say that that is a Ten Hag improvement or a player's improvement, because we weren't sure last week. We were sort of tossing it up whether it was Ten Hag's fault or the players not listening. Same thing this week, just for a positive?
Ten Hag has changed it, definitely. I'm safe to say that last week he got it wrong now. We've seen another variation of it. This was right, and what they did last week was wrong. So this week, they've got the one up, one in behind, and then they've got their 2 banks of 4. And you've got to say that Garnacho worked really, really hard. Didn't have a great day going forward, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But what it means is when you're organised like that, absolutely outstanding performances from Harry Maguire in the first half and Johnny Evans throughout. And what it means is when you've got those teams in that position is that Maguire can push right up and actually take a bit of a gamble where he goes, I know I've got my mate with me and we're in a good position, so I can go and win the ball. And they didn't do that against Spurs at all. They got caught out all over the place. Whereas against Villa, arguably a better side at the moment, they were much, much more organised, in position. Maguire and Evans were committed. And then at half-time, they bring on Lindelof and, Maguire gets injured as well and he gets replaced. But they as a unit, they were just miles better. 4-4-1-1. In a defensive position. So much, much better. And they nullified Villa. And Morgan Rogers did get the ball a few times in that hole in behind Ollie Watkins. But what it meant was Eriksen fouled him a few times. Kobbie Mainoo fouled him a few times.
That's part of it, isn't it?
Absolutely. But because Maguire and Evans were committed and went out to the ball, they've really, really shut down those areas that they left wide open the week before. So it was an improvement.
There you go. Well, selfish runners for point 2, you said. Now, is this a lack of, or because there was lots of selfless running going on? Is it a positive or a negative? It's something you want to see or not?
Well, selfish runners, right, is a big problem. It's a big problem because you might think as a forward and as a winger, you want to score. Of course they want to score.
I would say so, yeah.
But you're not always going to be the one that scores. And so what happens in the first half at Villa Park is you've got 4 Man United runners, if you like. Hojlund, Rashford, Garnacho and Bruno. They're the ones who are charging forward. But not at any point is one of them thinking, I need to create space for somebody else. So there were moments where Garnacho, he's getting in the box, he's making an effort, but he's making the wrong effort. He's making a run at the penalty spot, which is narrowing all the space at the front post. If he goes to the back post, the fullback's got to go with him and move back that way. And then there are other occasions where Eriksen and Mainoo are joining the attack and they're running at the edge of the box. There was an occasion where Rashford runs down the left with the ball. He looks up and basically there are 5 Villa defenders in front of him. And that's because all the Man United players have made selfish runs. Yeah. They all want the ball to score rather than going, I'm going to create the space for somebody else to score.
That feels the sort of thing you learn very, very early on in your football career, regardless of what level you play at. And B, it sounds very much like the Wednesday night football game I play in Hackney with a load of blokes in their 40s, where it's exactly that. No one, because you kind of understand, on a Wednesday night, is making those sacrificial runs to draw defenders away and open space up. But you think at a Premier League level, that doesn't sound like that much of a complex tactical
Absolutely.
plan.
There must be an element there of them not trusting each other. So there's that to consider.
Or wanting the glory?
Yeah, maybe wanting the glory, yeah. But I had the privilege of watching an Eddie Howe training session where all he shouted throughout it was sacrificial run, make the off the ball. And that is, it's so, and we saw it in the Tottenham Brighton game that those two teams make unselfish runs all the way through and then somebody else scores.
So you've mentioned there that Manchester United looked better from a defensive point of view, certainly to what we spoke about on last week's Tactics Exposed. From an offensive point of view, though, we've criticised them for not having any discernible patterns of play. We're not the only ones to do that. Was there any improvements with the ball, or were you still a little bit disappointed?
There was a bit of improvement with the ball in playing out from the back. And I bemoaned this last week, and it was just infuriating to watch that every time a centre-back got it, they passed it to Onana, or it went back inside. The full-backs weren't creating an angle that Onana could play through the gap. So this week, they went almost a bit Maresca style, and a bit Man City style, really, where the goalkeeper steps into the back four. Yep. So Onana, good enough with his feet, we know. So what happens is if the ball is on the left-hand side, then the left-back steps into midfield and Onana goes in as the extra centre-back. Johnny Evans moved over to the left. If the ball goes to the right-hand side, Mazraoui or Lindelof in the second half does the same thing. And basically it just gives you an extra man. You know, it's effectively them playing 11 v 10, considering the other team's got a goalkeeper in the net. So it was an improvement, but then that's only stage one.
Yeah.
I mean, we look at, again, let's mention Brighton because of how good they were at attacking. Brighton have had 2 managers since Ten Hag got the United job,
Quite.
and they've got 2 different identities, and they're learning how to attack. And we're still not seeing enough from Ten Hag.
Even West Ham scored 4 at the weekend under Julian Lopetegui.
Even West Ham.
Exactly that. Right. Number 3, Dino, the free kick, hokey, cokey. This is an interesting one. I'm not going to dance. I expect you to perform any dance moves. What does that mean?
Well, look, we're not going to go all strictly here on you, but basically there's this new technique for defending set pieces and free kicks, essentially, not corners, but where teams who have got a dominant goalkeeper will push right up onto the edge of the box.
Yep.
So they create this gap that the goalkeeper can come and get it.
Who are we focusing on here?
So
sorry?
this was Villa Man United as well. Right. So Man United are pushing, have decided Villa are great set piece takers. They put the ball in the right areas all the time. You know, they're right up there with Arsenal from a set piece perspective. So what United did was, right, we're going to step right onto the edge of the box. So Villa's okey cokey goes against this, okay? So you have 2 set-piece takers. We've all seen one dummy where one guy goes to take it, puts his hand up, and then the other guy takes it. Villa did it 4 times. Yeah, they did it 4 times. Right foot taker, left foot taker. One goes to take it, steps back. Other one goes to take it, steps back. Third one goes to take it, steps back, and then eventually they cross the ball in. But what this did was it pushed the back 4 or the defenders back into the area, into that horrible place that they don't want to be, sort of around the penalty spot where they're neither high nor low.
Is that because every time someone goes to take it, they're trying to get the jump,
they're going to back
and
off.
they're doing these ones to get back in position?
Off. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, one dummy, you can get yourself back into the edge of the box position. 2 dummies, you're like, oh, are we going or are we staying? And then eventually the defending takes over and you just go, no, just defend the goal, defend the goal. So it was fun. It was good to watch.
Is that so? What would the thinking behind that be? So the attackers can get a run on them, or more so to beat any offside traps?
Yeah, to both to get 3 things really. Exactly as you said, to beat the offside trap. For attackers to get a run and to stop the goalkeeper coming out.
Yep. Fabian Hurzeler, the new Brighton manager, he's one of those young ones, the trendy hipster managers, I would say. But he's already proven that he's a tactical genius in game as well as prior to matches.
Yeah, and look, we can talk very much about Spursiness. I said it. I shouldn't have said it.
Well, I've got my all black mark of respect outfit
absolutely,
on for you.
But Hurzeler made it wasn't. I got very annoyed. Okay, and I think I messaged you after during the game or after the game. I got very annoyed with the analysts saying it's not about tactics. It's not about tactics. It was about tactics.
Felt like a bit about tactics.
It was absolutely. Now Hurzeler made an in-game switch. And I actually saw him on the touchline talking to his assistants. It was about, there was when actually they were only 1-0 down. It was before they conceded the second. Yeah. But what's happened in here is Hojlund in midfield is playing in a diamond. So Brighton are trying to stop Bentancur getting the ball. We talked about Bentancur last week for Man United, okay? But he's trying to stop Bentancur getting the ball with the diamond. But what Spurs did very, very easily was it went into Bentancur and then first touch he plays it out to one of the fullbacks. Yep. Off they go. Kulusevski and Maddison running riot.
The inside channels, I've now learned, absolutely, like to target.
And it was very much about getting Kulusevski or Maddison on the ball. So what he did was he out-Anged Ange. He went, well, we can't defend against this. We're getting torn to shreds. Yeah. So we're just going to attack. Yeah. So basically he went 4-2-4. And so instead of Hojlund being part of a midfield diamond, he went in as a 2 with Baleba and made it so he levelled up against Kulusevski and Maddison, basically accepted that Bentancur could have the ball. Yep. But then they went direct. They had 2 wingers right up on the Tottenham fullbacks, two forwards right up on the Tottenham centre-halves, and basically went, let's make it a game of basketball. Yep. And Spurs then stopped running, stopped competing, and allowed Brighton's tactic, which was to go forward quickly and to run more than you, to let them back in it.
So was that similar, the 4-2-4 from Brighton, similar to what we spoke about on a previous episode, the Liverpool-Manchester United game with Liverpool? You said they're about 4-2-4 with the 2 pivots and then the 4 attacking players. Any similarities?
Yeah, a little bit when you haven't got the ball. But when you have got the ball, it's also about, we know what the Tottenham fullbacks do. They go charging forward. And so Brighton just went, we're not going to go back with them. Go on then. We're already 2-0 down. Go on, go back that way. And what they did was they nullified Tottenham's fullbacks by Mitoma and Minter the other side, just pushing right up. And then they just said to Hinchelwood and Belabor, you've just got to run your socks off. And I think Hinchelwood only had 20-odd touches in the second half. But boy, did he run. He was just running doggies all over the place.
Ange Postecoglou stood on the touchline doing these ones. What should he have done?
Well, he had to make a change.
Well,
Instead of shaking his head, he had to make a change. And it was just infuriating. Just bring Basuma on, and I think we've actually captured the exact moment that Ange Postecoglou makes it feel like he's a Tottenham fan as he loosens his tie.
Feeling the pressure a little bit.
Yeah. And it was very, very frustrating. He should have made a change, brought an extra midfield player on. I'm not saying change the philosophy.
At what stage would you suggested the change?
Because the change should have come at 2-1. The change should have come at 2-1. They should have noticed what Brighton had done in the first half. They had half time to sort that out. But then in the second half, they needed to make a change and get another midfield player in there. But Ange was also right. It actually was because they stopped running. And we're going to actually identify as well where the mistake was made for the Brighton goal. And it wasn't a doggy missing the ball. It was way before that.
Didn't have the greatest of games with doggy.
No, he didn't have the greatest of games. But defensively, the mistake from him and unbelievably Van der Ven jogging instead of running.
The world's quickest man ever in history.
Well, what happens is they're exactly in the right line. They're in exactly the right position. And then instead of backing with Porro and Romero, Udogie and Van der Ven just got lazy. They didn't run, and then they're defending on the stretch. And that's when Van der Ven stretches, gets a little touch, throws Udogie all over the place, and then Brighton score.
Right, we're going to finish with a little bit of positive for Tottenham Hotspur, Dino. Brennan Johnson, 6 in 6. He's a man possessed, it appears, and not necessarily a super fashionable signing at the time, but rapidly becoming a very, very important part of new look Tottenham.
Well, rapid's a good phrase because he is rapid. But the key to it is, and as we talked about Man United before, we'll link these two things together, where it's the angles of the run that he makes. Last season, he scored 5 goals in 34, I think, over 30 games. And this season, he's done 6 in 6.
Yeah.
So the transformation has been a little bit of confidence, perhaps, but also Dom Solanke is playing like a Harry Kane role, where he's dropping in and playing the ball over his shoulders. He's transforming Spurs. We'll come back to that in another show. But much like Man United weren't making those selfless runs, Tottenham do.
Right.
Now, there's 2 occasions where Dom Solanke runs into the area to not get the ball.
Yeah.
And one of them leads to a Maddison goal. But it's because Johnson now is not making a run which is going up the outside of the fullback. He's running straight at the goal.
Right.
And so as a fullback...
From a wide position.
Yeah. As a fullback, do you let him go outside, then you can't see him when the ball's played inside you? Do you let him go inside you because you can see him, but then you've got to catch him? So what Johnson is doing, he's no longer running straight. He's running at an angle, and then when he gets to goal, he straightens up again. So it's like a zigzag run that goes in between the defenders. Solanke keeps finding him. And as I say, when Tottenham and Brighton go forward, they flood forward, but they're not just running aimlessly at the goal. Yeah. They're taking defenders away. They're running into Kulichevsky, and I know Werner gets a lot of stick because he can't finish his dinner, but he's making good runs as well. And if only he could finish like Johnson is finishing at the moment, then Spurs would have been out of sight in this game before they went wibble in the second half.
It feels very much, and a bit apt this weekend as the NFL was in London, but it feels very much like an NFL attacking passing play where the quarterback gets the ball, and then you'll often have attacking players deliberately running defenders out the way in order to open up space for a dangerous wide receiver or something.
Yeah, and it was almost like special teams with Brighton and Spurs. And as we said, Ten Hag could do well to watch that. And, I've got to give Garnacho and Rashford some praise in that Man United game because they worked their socks off defensively. Maybe Rashford shouldn't have been on the pitch at the end, but they worked their socks off. But you've got to get them in those positions where they're making those attacking runs for each other. And, we used to see it in the, Man United of old and, the flooding forward, and it's like the red arrows going across each other and making runs. And they're not just making runs for the sake of it. Yep. They're making runs to make space for somebody else.
For each other. So that's effectively what we saw in the build-up to Maddison's goal.
Yeah, Solanke makes the run into the area not to get the ball, as strange as that sounds. It comes back to Maddison. Maddison scores. And look, we talked about some of the positives from Erik Ten Hag defensively. That's good. He needs to build on that in an attacking sense and get some of his strikers and forwards making those unselfish runs in order to score goals. and then maybe, just maybe, he might cling on to his job.